I once again welcome all the participants. It's going to be a very technical, interesting session, which is going to be very, very useful since most of you are going to really apply this in your workspace. Okay, Okay, now having said that, let me be the devil's advocate. Everybody is familiar. Everybody talks about competency. Say, for example, but why competence? If competencies were not there 2 or 3 decades ago, what were the challenges? Quick. I want to, this is like a fire round. Yeah. What do you think?
Inform-
When competencies were not there, all of you are HR professionals. What do you think could have happened?
It could have been random, vague, creating a lot of chaos, confusion, understanding to understand who's supposed to do what and how do we ascertain uh,
Mhm.
what does a person come with or doesn't come with in terms of skills, knowledge,
Okay.
attitude.
Anybody else? Quick. Yeah. Anybody? Hey, all of you are, huh? HR professionals, if competencies, maybe even in your organizations right now, we are not using competencies. Say, the very fact that we are discussing that competencies are very, very critical. So, but if they were not there, and why, what kind of HR challenges we have? How do organizations perform? What happens?
The performance, the efficiency could not be brought in. The skills do
Rightly
not
stated.
map.
Rightly stated. I think, yes, Nishant, um, you can't really what? A, let me
To
start with, if we were to hire somebody, how would you hire? A will hire with his own subjectivity.
yes,
B will hire with his own subjectivity. So there is no standardization, no benchmark. Okay, you have hired. Now you want to evaluate the performance of people. What are the standards? Right, there are no standards. Now A will, again, the boss will evaluate his reporting on certain standards. Again, another manager will again evaluate the performance on another standards. No benchmarking. Or if you want to reward, what are the standards? Or if you want to do career mapping or like career architecture, so you had so much of what, no standardization. So therefore, ultimately, what happens to the outcome, like performance or revenues, they are more like it. If it happens, it is like a lottery. Okay, I hired this person, maybe he will be good, maybe he will not be good. Or I will make this person, I'll say, hey, you have to, for a sales manager, I'll tell him, you have to reach 500 units of target. He may reach them, he may not reach them. And what is to happen to the wage cost? Wage cost will be actually high. But to the outcome, you really cannot pinpoint and say, yes, I'm going to really achieve this. So there were many challenges before the competency. Okay. Now with the competency, what do you think could have happened? I wanted to understand at least, little bit of where are we and how are we. Let's just share. Yeah. So how do competencies help?
Competencies help in understanding what are the skills, what skills and knowledge is required for a particular role or a job
Okay.
role, and not
Mm-hmm.
just now, but for the future as well.
Okay. So now, having stated that, this competency theory, this currency of competency, it's been there for the last 20 to 30 years. Every organization talks about competencies. But let me give you a little bit of a history of competencies and then say what are we going to teach in these entire 4 sessions. I don't know how many of you heard of David McClelland. He was a great psychologist. He was the one who did a lot of research. He did a lot of research in the area of competency theory. And he said that this traditional, we used to hire by what? High IQs, people going for, very good, prestigious, premium organizations. Okay. They did not predict effective performance or superior performance. So with the kind of research he said, if you have those typical competencies for a particular job, he could do better. Let me give you an example. What he did was he said, hey, this in United States, they would actually recruit a lot of PhDs who were from the premium institutes like Harvard, MIT, etc. For what? For counselors, psychological counselors to mentor people, and they would post them to these underdeveloped countries like Africa. And they would have the local people who were not very qualified, but they would help them in this mentoring, counseling, etc. And research shows that these local people were far, far better counselors than the qualified doctorates who are from premium institutes. Why do you think so? Anybody who can just tell me? I just gave you a great performer and a poor performer. So what do you think must have happened? What did these local people have which actually demonstrated that they were great counselors, they could mentor people, they could help people?
Experience, exposure.
Empathy. What do you need to have to be a very good counselor? Empathy. If you are not able to empathize, you may have great education, like a doctorate in psychology, but you cannot be a great counselor if you don't have that key competency, which we call it as empathy. For example, a sales manager, he has great qualifications, okay? Sales manager, great qualifications, highly knowledgeable. But if he has to be a very good performer, first of all, what do you think he should? What will be one or two of his KRAs? He has to actually achieve business targets, right? Now, in order to achieve those business targets, what are those one or two competencies do you think he will need to have?
Persuasion
I
skills.
said sales manager. I didn't say a sales rep. What are those two? He has a sales target. He has a big aim. He has to achieve his sales target. Now, what are those one or two competencies he needs to have to achieve that? He's a great guy. He's an MBA. He has high qualifications. But what are those two critical competencies or one competency? Anybody? Kaushal, Nishant.
Business acumen.
Okay. Anybody?
Motivational skills.
Huh?
Motivational skills.
Yeah, but can we define it? So, the most important thing a sales manager should have what? Leadership, influencing skills. How is he going to influence his team to achieve the target? Right? Customer focus. Of course, product knowledge or business acumen is very important. But if he does not have this influencing skills, or, Paul has put it as motivational, I would put it as persuasive influencing skills. So what McLennan said, there are key competencies which have to be defined for any job or a role to be very, very effective. Okay. So I'm just setting the context, and let me actually take you through what are we going to do in these 4 sessions.
In our current till date, I have often seen people using competencies and skills very interchangeably and loosely. So,
Right.
as far as I understand, competency is a cluster of knowledge, skills, and attitude. And
Okay.
when we talk about skills, some skills are acquired skills, some skills are inbuilt. When it comes to defining any skills, or when we talk about any
Right.
skill. So
Right.
I want to know, when is it that we need to use the word competencies, and when do we need to use the word skills? Because people just use these two words so
Very
loosely and
loosely, as you
interchangeably.
rightly stated,
Yeah.
interchangeably. I am going to explain, and the very fact that we are actually doing this session is to clearly explain, hey, what is the difference between a competency and a skill? First of all, is any difference, or we can just use it, interchangeably? You will definitely get all the clarifications in the sessions. Okay, Pankaj? Done. Okay. So what are we going to do in session one? Is we're going to understand at a conceptual level what is this competency, all right, and then we'll talk about the competency framework, competency dictionary, and how are we going to use these competencies, or how do organizations use it, what we call it as competency management, as a tool for HR. And you will be working with maybe 3 to 4 exercises if time permits, differentiating when we talk about motives, traits, competencies, skill, etc. How do you differentiate? Elaborate exercises in preparing a competency dictionary, in also preparing, writing down your functional, technical competencies, etc. So this will be your first session. In the second session, essentially the core of the program will be how do you actually go about mapping competencies in an organization for different roles, which is an elaborate work, okay? And then a little bit of, how do you measure them, etc. Essentially, how do you write those behavioral indicators, which are at the heart of competencies? And I will tell you the importance of behavioral indicators today. Why are they so critical? Everybody talks about BIs, bars, etc. But what are they? How do you write them? And what is the importance of these? Then in the third session, we are going to talk about assessment centers. You may have a competency framework, you may have a competency map, but do you people have competencies? So you need to assess them. And then get into what are those gaps in your roles, in your people, and assessment centers are used to find out the gaps, okay, so that you can do training need analysis, etc. Or you can also do it for development purposes, for career laddering, succession, etc. And in the fourth session, what we are going to do is we're going to do all about what is this competency based interviewing or behavioral event interviewing, which again forms the heart of how do you identify competencies. So, like, say, for example, when I'm doing a recruitment, when I'm hiring a person, earlier days, you just hired, looking at a CV and a position. But can you be very precise, specific in terms of what are those key competencies required for an HR business partner? Now I am interviewing Pankaj for an HR business partner role. No, so does he have these competencies? I'm not wanting to know what Pankaj has. I'm actually hiring him for an HRBP role. He may have many other competencies, but precisely, hey, can I interview him for those required competencies? But people fall into this trap of looking at all kinds of competencies what Pankaj has. It's okay to look at them, but I can say, hey, Pankaj is very good for, another role. I'll keep aside, but may not be for a business partner. So we will look at what is this competency-based interviewing? How do you go about, and then also while we are doing the interviewing, how do you give feedback? Okay. And what is the role of an assessor, etc. So it's going to be a very comprehensive, but conceptually, I think I will advise all of you to do reading a lot of the material sent by Meritt, so that we can do more of the practical work. Okay, guys? Okay, all set. So I want you all to read the history of the competency theory, which I don't want to do it right away. I gave you a little brief about it, that this was actually researched by David McClelland, and he was the one who coined this competency. And he said, as per his definition, okay, competency is the combination of what? Knowledge, skill, everybody is talking about, right? Ability, behaviors. So if I want to talk about, like, for example, I said, hey, what are some of the competencies for a salesperson? It could be communication, it could be negotiation, it could be customer focus, it could be product knowledge. Now, what is this connect? Somebody said just knowledge, somebody said skill. So, what is the importance? When we talk about competency, let me just give this definition first. Very important definition. Please note this definition. This was given by Spencer and Spencer, Competency at Work. You should read this book. He says, competency is an underlying characteristic. Underlying characteristic that is causally related to criterion referenced effective or superior performance in a job. Please understand, when I say underlying characteristic, anybody, can you just tell me? It's deep. It is not superficial. It is deep down. Okay. Say, for example, if a sales manager is able to really achieve the target because of his influencing skills, it is deep down. He's able to persuade. He's able to influence. It is deep, underlying characteristic. Now, second, it is causally related to criteria reference. What does this mean? That means you can measure. You can measure when the existence or the presence of a competency and then define it, saying whether he will be able to perform effectively or perform poorly. The presence or the absence of this competency will be what? Will also tell you whether he'll be able to perform a job. Got it? Now, having said that, now what are those underlying characteristics? Motives, traits, self-concept, knowledge, skill. This was very, very important. It is compared, what is this connect between competency and iceberg model? When you see an iceberg, what happens? Can anybody tell me what is an iceberg? 20 part is you can see and 80% of that is submerged, right? So what is that can you see when we compare it to a competency? It is only what? Behavior. What can you see of a person? It is only a behavior. Skill and knowledge are the two things which convert. We will typically say, how can you see knowledge? I will ask Pankaj, okay, can you tell me what is the Bloom's theory? Or can you tell me how do you identify training needs? He will tell me. Skill, then I will ask a payroll guy, hey, can you actually perform on this, what is the software? How will you do a payroll spreadsheet, etc., etc. He will do. So what does it mean? You can actually see skill and knowledge through behavior. Typically, when I'm hiring a person, what is the easiest thing to evaluate? Anybody, guys, Kaushal, Nishant, when you're recruiting a person, a recruiter, what is the easiest thing you can actually see or evaluate?
Skills only.
Yeah. How will you see knowledge? You will ask questions, right? You will ask questions in terms of, for a recruiter, what will you ask? Some questions. Okay. Do you know how to use what? The most of these social media platforms, etc. Okay. Do you know how to use the latest software for recruitment, etc. And skill, how will you evaluate a skill? Nishant, how will you evaluate a skill for a payroll guy? What will you do? You will ask him to perform. You will say, hey, please use this platform and then create a spreadsheet. Are you with me? You are able to. Say, for example, the payroll guy has to have a high integrity. How will you test for it? Will you ask him, hey, are you a person with high integrity? Yes, I'm a person with high integrity. Do you have the motivation, the drive to work extra hours? Yes, I am ready to do. Do you have eye for detail? Yes, I have eye for detail. But when you take him and then when you see he's making so many mistakes, he wants to go at 5 o'clock itself. He has a very low self-esteem. So typically when we are hiring, what is happening? Deep down, those invisible things, those traits, those motives, those concepts, those values which are required, huh? If I'm only asking through questions, I'm not able to evaluate a person. So according to McClelland, he says, it is not what you see, but it are those invisible things which will actually drive a person's performance. Okay. So therefore, if you see, there is a causal relationship. What is a causal relationship when you have the presence of a competency? Huh? What is this causal relationship, Pankaj or Nishant? What is this causal relationship? When I say causal relationship, what does it mean? There is a cause and effect relationship. Pankaj, are you with me? What is this causal relationship? The presence of a competency. It has a causal relationship. What does it mean? There's a cause and an effect. If you have this competency, you will then have this outcome. Say, for example, I have this, I'm a very high achievement motivator guy. Means I love to achieve things. Then what will happen? That will get translated into what? Action. And that gets translated into your behavior. So a person who is a highly motivated person in achievement, typically what does he do? He will look at, hey, what are the goals I have to do? He will take feedback. He will take certain risks and ensure that he achieves whatever he has to achieve. And this is very, very important for a competency called causal relationship. Okay. Now, whenever we hire, it's very, very easy to hire for skill and knowledge. Okay. But when a person does not have the right motives or the traits or the attitude, then what happens? You may actually hire a person for knowledge and skill, but that guy, after 2 months or 3 months, his performance will be lacking because there's no motivation. Hey, this job I'm not interested. Okay. Or he has, the kind of values the organization, to be very, very what? Disciplined, to be very, very highly what? Respect for other individuals. He does not have respect. So those people, then what happens? They are misfits. So typically what happens? You need to actually hire for motives, traits, and attitudes as opposed to skill and knowledge, because these are easily trainable. But the core aspect, which is trait and motives, they are not trainable. Okay? Yeah. And the research has showed that people with the right kind of competencies can perform very well. And higher the job, the requirement higher competencies. At a lower level, the need is only for more for a skill and knowledge. But as you keep going higher, you need higher behavioral skills. Like, for example, an HR executive, I will talk about L&D person. An L&D executive, typically what kind of skills and knowledge will he require? Now that Pankaj has been in that role, probably he can respond to me. An L&D executive, Pankaj.
So
What kind of competencies will have?
domain, firstly, it is the domain knowledge.
Yeah. So the competencies will be fairly at a knowledge and skill level, right?
Yes, knowledge and
Maybe
skill level.
teamwork. But if he's an L&D manager, head of L&D, what kind of competencies do you think will differentiate from an L&D executive?
More of leadership skills,
Strategic
strategic
orientation, business
thinking,
acumen,
yeah, strategic thinking,
understanding business,
collaboration.
right? Leadership, influencing, etc., which are not required because the context or the role of the job is very, very different. Okay. And competencies will vary for every organization depending on the life cycle of the organization as well. Because a startup may need different kind of competencies. A matured organization may need a different competency framework. And while an organization, which is on the decline will need resilience will become very, very higher there. Change management will become very, very higher there. Okay. So depending on the life cycle of the organization, also competencies will vary. Now, having said that, competency frameworks, competencies, in general, may be the same labels, but every organization's competencies will vary because they are contextual. When I said contextual, what are they? That means very, very specific to that organization. Just like role specific competencies will be contextual, even organizational competencies are very, very contextual because every organization operates in certain kind of a market environment, operates in certain kind of a culture, right? So therefore, the competencies, their indicators will be very, very different. We'll actually work on those things. All right. Just to give you a little bit. So if you have the competencies, competency framework, essentially what does that mean? That means when you define competencies across the organization for all your positions, then based on the business strategy, vision, etc., then you can use them for all your HR functions, which will give you business results. Got it? It's simple as that. In fact, when we talk about a competency framework, we actually start talking from where? Mission, vision, values, and strategy. Competencies are not in isolation. So typically when we are talking about a framework, we talk about what is the mission of the organization, what is the vision of the organization, what are the values, what is the strategy. A retail, like Reliance retail store can vary from a manufacturing organization. So every organization has its mission, vision, values. So based on that, we will derive the core competency framework. And you will have various job families. Job families are nothing but what? Functions. So based on the families, you will have technical competencies, you'll have leadership competencies, which in turn will have all the behaviors, because every competency, how will it be observed? How will it be measured? Only through behaviors. Just by naming, influencing, you can't really measure. You need to have what are those behaviors, which we will learn in a very short time, okay? Which will get into this competency. Only then we can measure them, which are called behavioral indicators. What is that I can see in the person? What I can observe? I can measure. So, based on that, you evaluate. So, there is a direct linkage between what? The organization vision, and what you actually measure. So, therefore, when you do this, then you will have performance results. Okay. Having said that, let me give you a little more conceptual knowledge quickly about a competency architecture. It could be any organization. It could be a resort. It could be a manufacturing. It could be a automobile, ancillary. It could be oil and gas, etc. Typically, any organization, it has an architecture. What is architecture? That means when you construct a house, you'll have a design, right? You'll have a design. So typically what happens, you have something called, based on your vision, mission, and values, something called core competencies. All of you are working in your organization. Can you name one core competency? One core competency? Anything which are actually common across all the roles of the organization. Everybody should have that. Any one core competency. Quick.
Communication.
Pardon?
Communication.
Okay, communication. Say, for example, everybody knows about Amazon. What could be their core competency? So core competency is something like what? It could be teamwork, it could be adaptability, it could be what? Things like even uh, responsiveness. Amazon, what is their vision statement? Anything, anywhere, anytime. Like say, for example, if Kaushal gets up at 12 o'clock and say, I want something, and he will just send it, ask for this, Amazon will give it to you next day. Anything, anywhere. So think of that, then what kind of a values you have to instill in your organization. So the core competencies are those competencies which cut across everybody in the organization. Then next comes job competencies, job family competencies. What are these? That means every function in the organization will have certain competencies. Like, for example, HR will have its own competencies, finance will have its own competencies, marketing, sales and marketing will have its own competencies, right? You will agree or not? Based on what they need to do, the department, it will have. Then, having said that, then there is something called job specific competencies. For example, you are familiar with HR. So in HR, you have L&D, you will L&D role, you will have an HR business partner role, you will have a compensation guy. So different roles based on what they need to do, you will define their competencies, right? So there again, job specific competencies. Then you have these leadership competencies, which all cutting across all roles, whoever is a leader, a manager, they should be having leadership competencies. So this is typically a typical competency architecture. So if you look at it, just to reiterate, core, functional, leadership. So say, for example, core competencies could be teamwork, client focus, excellence. These are all core competencies which cut across all the organizations and at all levels. Say, for example, we talked about what? Let me see. Walmart. Walmart gives a very less cost effective. So they have something called customer service also, value pricing. Toyota, it is all reliability. So, okay, for example, if I have a competency like a reliability in Toyota across the organization, what do you think across the organizations people will have to do? Anybody, quick. Hey, guys. Or let me ask you a very closer question. In hospitality, say in hospitality, customer focus is very critical. It's a very core and, a core value. So if you want to have this value across the organization, Nishant, what will you see? Customer focus.
Yes, ma'am. First is the communication. That's it. Everything starts with that, and the competence, ma'am. What happens? Certain cases, let's say in the kitchen, the communication is not there. We can manage. When we hire people,
No. So I'll just tell you what I was trying to get at. Customer focus becomes very, very important, which is actually a core competency. Now, irrespective of whether you're a finance guy, whether you are a front staff, whether you are an HR person, in all your nature of work, you need to have the customer focus in mind.
yes,
You're with me? So
yes,
therefore, what will you do? When you hire a person, you will also look at this competency called customer focus, and you will evaluate this person in terms of the behavioral indicators which are required, saying, hey, does he have a customer focus or not? But just by asking, do you have a customer focus? What will I say? I want the job. I'll say, yes, I have customer focus. But by just saying yes or no, can you actually then say with assertiveness, yes, this guy has customer focus? Or if you want a person who is, reliability becomes very, very important. So what are those things, or what will you do to ask him whether he's reliable. So these are some of the things which gets translated when I look at competency, which actually gets translated into behavioral indicators. We are getting into that.
Yes.
Okay. So these are core competencies. Then everybody's understood what are job family competencies. Job family
Please go back
competencies are
to the
as simple as functional competencies. Okay. Yeah. Somebody had a question, I think.
yeah. Could you
Pankaj, you
please
had a
go
question.
back? Could you please go back to the competency architecture slide?
Yeah.
So we have here job specific and job families, and top are the leadership competencies.
See,
So
job family is, to put it very, very simply, all functions which you have in your organization. Got it?
no, I'm aware of job families. I just need to understand how do we define and differentiate leadership competencies from the core competencies or the common
Yeah.
competencies which is at the base.
We are coming to that. So I want you to first of all get familiarized with just the names, because then
Okay.
we are coming to those, how do you differentiate? What are the proficiency levels, intensity of the competency, etc. Because I may say customer focus for a front desktop guy, but the intensity of customer focus will be different for a desktop guy and for a business manager. Yes or no?
From a concept standpoint or conceptually, how are leadership competencies different than the core competencies, which forms the foundation? That's my question, actually.
Okay. So when we talk about leadership competencies, will all roles require leadership competencies? No. At a lower level, if you're not managing a team, you don't require leadership competencies, right?
Mhm.
So when you are progressing in your career, so there are jobs like first line managers, etc. So the proficiency levels of those leadership competencies will vary and also will be required. But at a lower level, say for example, at a lowest level L&D executive, I may not need leadership competency, but I may require teamwork, which could be a core competency, teamwork across the organization. Or I may require collaboration, which is required across the organization. But intensity or proficiency level will be different, because my nature of the job is different from a senior manager whose job is very different. But the label is the same. Are you with me, Pankaj? We
Yeah.
will get down to that very soon. Okay? Yeah. Right now, I'm just trying to familiarize you with, the broad labels as such. So we are talking about core competencies, which have to be there across the organization. Then we are talking about functional competencies for every function. Then we are talking about job family competencies. Then we are also talking about leadership competencies. Okay, types of competencies. Just stick to that. Then I'll tell you who should have what. All right. Having said that, just look at this diagrammatically. Say, for example, in a company, you have project assistant and project manager, just to show you diagrammatically. Okay. Now, so every role, this is a role project assistant in the project department, and this is a project manager. Project assistant reports into project manager. Okay. Now, having said that, the core competencies. What can you see core competencies here? Anybody wants to read them quickly? What? Okay. Adaptability, client focus. So these are the 3 core competencies for this organization, XYZ company, okay, which have to be there across all the roles. So you will see that these 3 competencies are also there in the project manager. But the proficiency levels are different. That means the intensity is different. For example, if you see client focus for a project assistant is only level 1. But what is the client focus proficiency level for project manager? It is much higher, at a level 4. Say, for example, if I were to give names like beginner, intermediary, advanced as labels for this proficiency levels, client focus may be just beginner. But for a project manager, he needs advanced. Is that clear? Adaptability. Based on the job content, adaptability is only at level 2. But for a project manager, it is at level 4. Likewise, achievement orientation at level 1. But for project manager, it is at level 3. Okay. So likewise, if you see functional competencies, analytical, communication, project planning. But the proficiency levels are different for assistant and for the manager. Now, job specific competencies, that means role specific competencies. So for the project assistant, quality focus is very important, teamwork. While for project manager, risk management and resource management are there, which vary because these are role specific competencies. Okay, this was just to give you an idea. Hey, what are the types of competencies, and how do you actually differentiate with regard to core, function, and job specific? I want you to do a quick exercise. Okay, so you have an exercise here. It won't take more. It is an individual exercise. I want you all to take just 5 to 6 minutes. Okay? Okay. What is the exercise about? The exercise is about identifying. There's a list of attributes. Right? Just take 5 minutes. You just have to tick. Appraisal. Is it a value? Is it a skill? Is it a behavior? Okay? Got it? Okay, please let me know once you are finished. Done? So, by and large, how many are finished so that we can also look at the right answers? Go to the, everybody, please have a look at it. Let's quickly run through a appraisal. Will you agree it's a skill?
When you say appraisal as a skill, is it the process of appraisal that we need to develop as a skill?
The process of appraisal. So it's a skill. You can't see that is not a behavior. Okay. Body language, very obvious. It's a behavior. Coaching. It's a skill. Coaching as a word. Commitment. Value. Confidentiality. Value. Counseling. Again, it's a skill. Courtesy. It's a value. Customer care. It's a skill.
Courtesy, I have made, actually, I have mentioned more as a behavior.
Behavior. Okay. Okay. Pankaj is a courteous person. Okay.
Right.
Now, what is that I can see about that courtesy? Can I observe that? Can I measure it?
If we
So
add
if I want to measure that value courtesy, what I need to know?
I need
I
to
need to then what?
define
Develop
courtesy.
that. Develop that into indicator, behavior indicator, saying. So if you are courteous, Pankaj, let us take this question. What is that you will do? Or how will you behave if you are courteous in an organization? Like you are a desktop manager, a desktop executive. You will greet everybody, right?
Mhm.
Are you getting me now?
Yeah.
So if I want to evaluate, if I want to say, is he a courteous person? So courtesy is a value, but I can't see it. It has to be translated into an indicator. Got it? Clear?
So,
Pankaj, your body language is showing that you're still not clear about it.
yeah, actually, I'm a little confused. So, when you say behavior and value, I'm a little confused between the two. So, when you say, I understand the explanation that we need to add an indicator to be able to evaluate and measure. But that shows up in my behavior, right? If I am a courteous person, the way I speak, the way I maybe deal with people or behave, that will show up in my behavior, and hence my thought process was to put it under behavior rather than value, because uh, I know that not every family, I mean, value is something that even if parents are courteous, not necessarily the kids will be courteous as well. That's what
So,
I.
so what I'm trying to say here is very, very clear. So when I'm saying that courtesy is one value as an organization, means, in a hospitality, courtesy becomes a very important value. Now, I want to hire people across the organization who are courteous. Okay. Now, how will I test or how will I assess for courtesy?
Okay.
Shall I ask? Pankaj is are you courteous? Yes, I'm very courteous. But what kind of a behavior will I observe? What is I want to know? I'll give
Hmm.
you another example. Takes initiative. Initiative. So will I know anything about Soumya being initiative?
Hmm.
Say for a recruitment manager, initiative is another competency. So initiative. Now, how will I know or how will I test his initiative? I need to have certain. That means, say for example, he's a recruitment guy. He takes initiative of looking at the funnel, that is the talent funnel. What kind of people are there, or some behavior. So when I say behavior, so this test was only to differentiate between what do you consider as a value. You should know as a person who is studying competencies. First of all, what is a value? What is a skill? What is a behavior? Okay, because behavior is observed and measured. So when I say courtesy alone, it is just a value. But when I translate that into certain behaviors, it becomes a behavior. Okay, as we
Values
go on,
differ
we have a
differ
lot more.
from
Yeah, yeah, tell
values
me.
differ from organization to organization. Like
Because
courtesy
they
over
are
here
very, very
is
contextual. Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
So over here it is a value, but when you say courteous, in reality it's a behavior, right?
So again, customer focus. They differ from organization to organization.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an organization who is into retail marketing, who has to be very aggressive. My behavioral indicator for customer focus may be very different because my value is, to be very aggressive. But whereas in an auto ancillary, in a distribution setup, my customer focus will be very different because I may have to greet that guy and understand his needs. Are you getting me? That subtle difference which I'm trying to make at saying that it just by the label of customer focus or courtesy, it need not be the same behavior because behavior will vary from organization to organization depending on its vision, mission, value, and strategy. Got it, Pankaj? Okay. Yeah. We have a lot more explanation in my slides, and we'll be doing exercises. Okay. Now, data facility, you're facilitating is a behavior. So, I will just quickly take few of the things. Honesty is a value. Influencing is a skill. Okay. Initiating action, behavior. Interviewing is a skill. Say again, performance review is a skill. Planning is a behavior. That's it. 27, Vilma or more. Problem solving is a skill. Then let us have a look at stress tolerance is a behavior. Time management is a skill. Okay. So we will also give you the score key. You can look at if you have gone wrong in anything, and definitely you can then come back on a WhatsApp or so saying that if you want further clarification. Is that okay, guys? Is that okay? Yeah.
Nirmala, I'm kind of not convinced with this exercise because I'm sorry, but there are a lot of so all the items right from 19 until 33, I have put it under skills, is
Let
because
me just, yeah,
I
let me
see
just,
that those skills can be developed and acquired over a period of time, and skills are something that are acquired
no, no,
when
one
you
second.
are in a
Yeah.
certain job.
Pankaj, you said I put them as skills. Interviewing. Okay. Interviewing is a skill.
Correct.
Now,
Judgment.
exercise is clearly to differentiate. These are the list of attributes. Got it? Step one. These are the list of attributes. Okay. Now, as a person who is wanting to do competency mapping, I need to first of all understand the difference between when I label what is a value, what is a skill, what is a behavior. So, to enable you to understand, okay, definitely when you keep learning, all the skills will be improved. But here it is not the objective of this exercise is only to help you understand how do you differentiate if there are a list of attributes, what is a value, what is a skill, and what is a behavior.
Exactly, that's my
Correct?
point. I'm not still able to differentiate what is
Can I
value.
add to it, Pankaj?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, for example, like the exercise sheet says that it is the value. Yes, and Pankaj says it is the behavior. It can be both. It can be value as well as it can be behavior.
So, for example, judgment. Now, judgment over here is under behavior, but I have listed as a skill because judgment as a skill comes where it can be acquired over a period of time when you are in a certain job. That's my point of.
Pankaj, let me just give you a differentiation. What is value and what is behavior? Behavior is more person related. You can see his behavior, how he is
Observe and
behaving,
measure.
observable. Value is something which is core to the organization, and that value will cut across the organization to all the people you hire or train or you have on board. So it is a set of value which is a core competency, core attribute.
Yeah, that
Okay.
I'm clear. I
Yeah.
just need to, for
I got
example, for
what Pankaj
judgment.
is saying. Okay, what Pankaj is saying, I got the essence of it. Okay, let me actually tell you. When we are talking about competencies,
So can we just go with one? I'm sorry, Nirmala. Can we just go with one example? Judgment for now. I know just for my clarity. Judgment
yeah.
over here is a behavior, while my selection was skill. Because of the matter of the fact that judgment as a skill needs to be developed and acquired if you are in a certain job. Not every job will require judgment. Correct. For example,
Absolutely.
pilot. Let's say a pilot will need that competency or a
You
skill.
will have to have the ability to take a decision based on certain data to judge
Correct.
whether to take off, whether not to take off. Okay.
Correct.
Now, here is a list which we are talking about. When we talked about competency, just go back to the definition of competency. Competency is what? It it is what? Just not knowledge. It is not just skill. It is not just motive trait. It's all of it. Knowledge, skill, motives, traits, and self-worth. Okay? It's a combination. Got it? So there is so when we are talking about this, just limiting ourselves to this exercise, we wanted to first of all make you understand, hey, how do you differentiate? Say, for example, how do you differentiate a value and a skill and a behavior? Because when we go further down to do exercises, so say, for example, honesty, or we'll stick to honesty, simple honesty. It's a value. Now, value can be personal. Value can be organizations also. I'm not differing. It doesn't mean that only organization will have a value, honesty. It can also be your own value. So honesty as a value. Now, when I'm talking about behavior, here it is simple as that. Hey, how do I translate, which we have not said, we have not given those indicators. An honest person, what does he do?
That I'm clear, Nirmala. That I'm
So
clear.
just
Is
that
the question
judgment,
about
so when you're talking about a judgment, I'm not denying that judge here in this aspect or judging, it's kind of you have taken it as a behavior. But I can also grant you that, okay, judgment per se, it can also be a skill because for a pilot, you are taking in a lot of data and deciding. Okay. So sometimes what happens, there is nothing like, hey, this has to be only a skill. Like, for example, mentoring.
it's a
In
skill?
the context, if it is an action verb, it can get into behavior. If it is just, mentoring as such an adjective, it can be a skill. Are you with me?
mentoring as an activity itself is a skill that needs to be acquired. Not everyone can be
right?
mentors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it is an action verb, it can get into behavior. But what does it do as a part of mentoring? That becomes a behavior. For example, I say mentoring is a skill, but how are you going to evaluate? Then there has to be certain observable and measurable indicators, which can then give me, I can see, hey, this is what he's mentoring. He's doing some things, right? That's the difference. Okay. Are you with me now?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Great. All right. Okay. But as we keep going, you will get a better understanding. Okay. Can you see the slide? So we talked about types of competencies, core competencies, functional competencies, which are all technical competencies. Then we talked about um, role specific competencies, and we can also talk about leadership competencies and generic competencies. Then proficiency levels will vary depending on the nature and the role of the job. Simple. So every role, the competencies will be defined depending on the intensity of what the job is required to do. Like Nishant was saying, we have done KRAs, KPIs. So depending on what the job has to do, you will actually map or define the competencies. Having said that, just to introduce you, what is a competency dictionary? Typically, when you have a dictionary, what do you use it for? You look at a word. It's like, a list of competencies in that dictionary for every organization, which will actually have a definition for the competency. Okay. And what will it have? Then it will have behavioral indicators. So this is like a reference tool. Okay, just understand right now, a dictionary is a list of competencies for that organization, which will be cutting across departments for roles, and it gives you a definition and also the behavioral indicators. I'll show you how it looks like. All right. Typically, a dictionary will look like this. See, say for example, communication. So it will give you a definition and they will say entry level, these are some of the behavioral indicators. At a mid level, these are the indicators. At a senior level, these are the indicators. So if you actually see that the proficiency level will be quite basic at an entry level and the proficiency level will be quite advanced at a senior level. It is understandable because the nature of the job is different. So therefore, the intensity of the proficiency level will vary. Agreed? Nishan? KK?
Yes, ma'am.
Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions here? Competency dictionary is what? It's like a menu. It's a list of competencies across the organization. What will it have? Typically, if you see, it will have name, it will have the definition, it will have behavioral indicators. Now, anybody who does not understand what is a behavioral indicator, anybody, please be, this is a forum to learn. Behavioral indicator, what does it mean? Anybody who can explain little? What is the behavioral indicator? I don't want to ask again. Pankaj say, ma'am is all the time asking me only. Huh?
No, I can
Say, for
answer this
example,
line.
in your competency dictionary, I write problem solving is one of the competencies. Okay. Very common, no problem solving. I give a definition. Identifies and resolves problems in a timely manner. Problem solving is what? You have to identify the problem, solve the problem. Definition. What are the indicators? Means, how will you know that this person is solving your problems? What are those behaviors? So can I have like this? Gathers and analyzes information. Yes or no? Develops alternative solutions. Makes decisions based on data. Now, if I just say, hey, do you solve problems? Yes, I solve problems. But if you only understand what does he do as a part of the problem solving, then only you will know whether he is doing problem solving or not. But by just asking him, hey, are you solving problems? does not tell me anything. Are you with me? So therefore, when I'm actually doing the competency mapping, I also have to write the indicators which give you a sense of standardization. Problem solving at a desk, an HR executive at a recruitment level may be very different. But for a HR head may be very different. But problem solving as such competency may be the same. The label may be the same, but my indicators will be very, very different because the nature of the job is very different. I can't have the same behavioral indicators for a recruitment executive and for a manager recruitment, same. Will I have? Because the nature of the job is very different. The requirement is very different. Okay? Very clear? So that is why we say learner, advanced and expert level. Okay? Teamwork. Again, just to give you teamwork. Everybody needs teamwork. How will you define teamwork? Teamwork is what? Collaboration, collaborating with others. And why do you do teamwork? To achieve a goal. Okay? Now, to do this, what will be the indicators? Anybody who wants to read it? Anybody?
Collaborates with others to achieve common goals.
Yeah, this is the definition. So then what will be
Definition.
the indicators? How will I know that he
Listens
is a team
actively.
worker? Yeah,
Oh,
he listens actively. Can you observe that? Can you measure it? Then shares information, supports team decisions. So these are things which I can observe and see. So based on this, I will say, hey, at a basic level, he's only participating. At an intermediate level, he's coordinating. At an advanced level, he's leading. So this is how the competency gets translated into observable, measurable indicators. Are you with me? Again, like a communication. Quickly, I will hide this indicators. Communication. Tell me what kind of indicators can be. Communication's definition is clearly conveys information, ideas, and instructions. Give me one indicator for communication. Anybody? KK, you want to try?
Yeah, again, the indicators are rightly written here only. So to say additionally, because listening actively without interrupting, so
I can
so
observe,
listening
I
will
can
be one of the
measure.
core component of this thing. So
Absolutely.
listening,
I can summarize,
right,
asking clarifying questions. So these are
right,
all observable and measurable,
correct,
right?
very
Yeah.
true.
So when I say a behavioral indicator, behavior, it has to be observed, it has to be measured. If it cannot be observed and measured, then I cannot call it as a behavioral indicator. Please be very particular about it. For example, that's why I say a good behavioral indicator has to be specific,
Hello.
observable, measurable, and job relevant. Okay. Now I'm going to give you, there is an exercise. So before that, I will help you all. Say, for example, I will say, Paul has good communication skills. Can I observe his behavior in that? No. So it is a very weak indicator. Rather, what should I say? He shares updates clearly, adjusts whatever it is. But I have to see his behavior. Okay. If I say Pankaj is trustworthy, can I see? Can I see trustworthiness? I can't see. So keep sensitive information confidential. Then I
Just
can
hold
say,
on,
hey,
guys,
he's
for a
keeping
minute.
sensitive information confidential. So therefore, he is trustworthy. For example, there is a job recruitment guy. He has to work very well under pressure. That's a very key competency. If I say works well under pressure, can I observe it? Can I can't. So I need to then say prioritizes task effectively, meets deadlines in high stress situation. So I'm showing you how, like, result oriented, it has to be translated into behavior. Leadership qualities. How? So when I say behavioral indicator, it has to be observed, and it has to be what? Measured. Now, a quick, I'm going to stop this and I'm going to give you a exercise on behavioral indicators. Exercise, card list. Okay. Everybody has this, guys. Do you have it?
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm?
Yes, ma'am.
We can do it as a team so that, do it individually. It helps. Share. So what do you need to do? You have to find out whether it is a skill, behavior, or a value. Okay. And then which competency it belongs to and is it observable? Simple. All right. Let us take the first one. Shares credit for team success. Is it a skill, behavior, or a value? Is it a skill, behavior, or a value?
It is behavior.
Excellent. Competency?
Straight for teams.
Communication.
Huh? Quick.
Teamwork, collaboration.
Teamwork.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Teamwork. Excellent. Okay, let us stick to that. Right now, we won't go to behavioral indicator. Strategic thinking. Okay. Is it a skill, behavior, or value?
Skill.
Wonderful. And if you have to label it as a competency, which competency? Will you agree it is a strategic thinking competency?
Yeah, strategic orientation.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And is it a behavioral indicator there? No. You have to translate it. Okay. Let us go to the third one. Integrity.
Value.
Skill, behavior, or value?
Value.
Maybe a value.
Value. Competency?
Ethics, integrity.
Integrity. Right? Integrity. It is not, so you have to translate into a BI. If you want to assess it, if you want to evaluate it, it is still not a BI. Empathy. Quick.
Yes.
Value. Right?
Yeah.
It can be a competency like an empathy also. You can also put it under EI. All right. And definitely it is not an indicator. Now, delivers tasks on time. Quick. Is it a skill, behavior, or value? Huh?
Behavior.
Wonderful. Are you getting it now? Some of you all are getting. It is a behavior. Okay. And if you have to put it as a competency, under what will you put it? Deliver
Accountability,
task on time. Accountability. Now, adaptability. Skill, behavior, or value?
Skill.
Okay.
Behavior.
Huh?
Okay. Value.
Adaptability is a value. Okay. And you can put it as flexibility or adaptability also. You can put it. And you need to have it is not a indicator, a BI. Now, listens actively in meetings.
Behavior.
Obviously, it is a behavior. Right? And listening can be a competency. And listening can also be a skill. I believe customers come first. Where will you put that as?
Value.
Huh? Value.
Value.
Can it become customer focus?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Then conflict resolution.
Skill.
Skill.
Excellent. It can come under teamwork. It can come under communication because, when you are talking about communication, even conflict resolution comes there, right? Okay. Anybody who is against it, please speak up. Analytical thinking.
Skill.
Skill, behavior, or value?
Skill.
Skill.
Absolutely. Competency also, it can come under analytical or it can also come under problem solving. Okay. Courage to speak up.
Value.
Huh?
Value.
It's a value, right? Okay. Pankaj agrees to it. Okay. Now, knowledge of labor laws.
Skill.
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 Excellent. Initiates improvement suggestions.
Behavior.
Behavior.
Excellent. Supports diversity and inclusion efforts.
Value.
Behavior.
Value.
Value.
Behavior.
Behavior.
Supports. You can see supporting, no? So it's a behavior. Are you seeing that somebody said value, but supporting, you can see that, okay? Passion for excellence.
Value.
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 I'm able to, this exercise was to give you that, differentiating what is a value, what is a behavior. Because as you keep going and doing competency mapping, etc., first of all, you have to understand, what can I say as competency and what is the behavior. Any questions here before we break for a 10-minute? Let me give you a quick recap of what we did so that we can connect what we are going to do with this. Okay. We talked about importance of competencies, right? And competency is knowledge, skill, trait, self-esteem, motives, etc., which are deep underlying characteristics, which have a cause and a effect relationship. Now, having said that, then we talked about types of competencies. Anybody who can quickly give me types of competencies, one or two, quick. We
Functional
talked about
and
types
technical.
for competencies, right? Then we talked about leadership competencies. We talked about job, family, or functional competencies. We talked about technical competencies, right? And role-specific competencies. Now, we talked about so many types of competencies. But then, how do you actually derive competencies from a job description? How do we derive competencies from a job description? Before we do an exercise, I'm just going to go straight away to show you. For example, this in every organization, you'll have a job description. Yes or no? Yeah. Say, for example, this is your HR business partner job description. Hypothetically, you have given just about 7 points. Collaborates with business leaders to align HR strategies, provides guidance, analyzes HR metrics and translates them into actionable insights, supports workforce planning, builds strong relationships, coaches managers, ensures compliance. So these are some of the things which the HR business partner does. Now, how do I derive competencies? As I said, there are types of competencies: core, functional, leadership, etc. How do I do that? Typically, what do? I take out each and everything of every statement. Collaborates with business leaders to align HR strategies. So typically, what does this mean? He's actually understanding business and then trying to actually align whatever he does, the HR strategy to the business. So the competency I can say is business acumen. Will you agree? All of you? Yeah? And the
Yes.
type can be leadership. We won't go to indicator now. So tell me, without looking at it, provides guidance on performance, ER and OD. What kind of a competency it can be? It's very obvious, no? HR knowledge, HR expertise. It's a functional competency. Anybody? And HR metrics. What kind of a competency it can be?
Can the first one be
Functional.
collaboration or strategic thinking? The first one?
The first one collaborates
Collaboration
with
or
business
strategic thinking?
leaders to align HR strategies. So if you look at this, it is more to do with the business acumen, right?
Collaboration is
kind of-
one.
Yeah,
Collaboration is
it
one
can be
attribute,
collaborating and leadership. So when you talk about leadership competency, it will also require an indicator like collaboration. Are you with me? When you look at leadership competency, it will also, you won't have collaboration by itself as a competency, but you can use a behavioral indicator for collaboration. or it can be a sub-competency collaboration. Okay. Supports workforce planning and talent development. You can put it as strategic thinking. Build strong relationship management. Coaches managers on leadership engagement, coaching and development. Ensures compliance. Obviously, it is with compliance and integrity. So, having listed these competencies, now if you have noticed, the competency types are also listed here. Some are core, some are leadership, some are functional. Okay. Now, to give you a better understanding, we will break you into two groups. Okay. And how do you list competencies? So now there is a what is the exercise? You have to identify key competencies for this role. Okay. There is an exercise there. And this is a worked out example. Now, the role is like a Pankaj, manager L&D. Okay. And he's at a career level, expert level. And the job description is the person is involved in designing, delivering soft skill workshops across all verticals in the organization to senior manager level. And he's also responsible for gathering training needs. He is also responsible for vendor and stakeholder management. Then he is also taking care of new hire training, etc., etc. Okay. Now, when you are actually identifying key competencies, you can use this framework, which is called tasks involved, action verb, object of the verb, why the work is done, and how the work is done. I'll give you one example. He has to gather needs. Okay? Whose needs? And why is it done? To meet vertical heads, mid-level managers, employees, to find out training needs. What is the output? You have to understand the training needs. And what is the procedure or tool or equipment you are using? Physical meetings, online forms, surveys, etc. So, all these gathering needs, analyzing, designing, implementing, these are all what the person is doing, the L&D guy. Okay. And object of the verb is, that is, what is the purpose or why are you doing them? And what is the expected output? And what is the resources you are using? Based on this, then you can identify knowledge, skill, and the abilities, and some amount of attributes, characteristics of this entire role. Okay. Now, what I want you all to do is go to this exercise, read the small, you can use any position if you want to. You can use an HR business partner, you can use a recruitment manager, use any position and analyze these things as per this format and write only this knowledge, skill, abilities, and personal characteristics. Okay. Vilma, you want?
Okay, Ananya, you can present. I'm sharing the screen.
Okay.
Okay, so we've taken the role of a HR business partner. According to the job description was provided for a mid-level who has ample of experience, and it was not a supervisory role. So since it is a BP role, the basic role of this person is going to be collaborating with the business units to align with the organizational values, mission, and the objectives. So there's a lot
Okay.
of communication, collaboration, and analyzing, and also knowledge of data involved. So in the tasks involved, we've taken it in 4 steps. So one is conducting meetings so that they can gather the information and understand what are the requirements for each business unit, and also if there are any concerns that need some kind of resolutions to be provided. So they do this through meetings and surveys and feedback forms. So after gathering the required information, the next step is to understand or analyze what they have received. So we will do this through data correlation between the records and what we have received from the various business units. So to why do we understand, why does this person has to understand the data, the expected output is so that they understand where the gap is or what more can be provided in order to bridge no the requirement. So this can be done through no analytical tools and data based on what kind of software is being used, and also MS Office suite, so Excel. And after understanding, the third step is to develop or create solutions in the form of policies or guidelines or trainings, so that the requirement can be fulfilled and the challenge or concern can be resolved and addressed accordingly. So this will be done through standard operating procedures. Whatever guidelines or policies were created, these will be discussed in meetings, and then presentations will be made to provide the related training. And the fourth step is providing. So after they've developed and after they've arrived at a solution, they have to provide the basic support that is required to implement or execute what was discussed. So no supporting guidance, mentoring and coaching if required, and discussing with all the parties involved. This will be done through emails, presentations, and again meetings. So we've listed out KSAPs accordingly. So knowledge, this person has to be very highly knowledge in all the organizational policies, and they also need to have business acumen or understanding of at a functional level, to make sure that is being aligned with the objectives of the organization. They also need to have awareness of the organization's structure, how the functions are structured in that organization. And we've listed out a few skills. So this role needs a lot of a very high communicate they need to be high effective communicators, so they need to be patient enough to listen and comprehend and understand. So collaboration, since they will be working with multiple business units and functions, they should be effective collaborators. So strategic view base, since the requirements and concerns come through all views, and but at the end of the day, it also becomes this person's role to make sure it is in alignment with the organization. So strategic view becomes important. Analytical and problem solving, since they do have to come up with policies and all, they need to understand how to fulfill it. Coaching and feedback, which is used in the implementation part. And time management, since all this has to happen on time so that the concern doesn't escalate. So they also need to have the ability to look at the big picture, ability to understand, as we've discussed, comprehend, interpret, and apply appropriate sections of laws, guidelines, and policies. And also risk mitigation. So in case of any concerns, they should have the ability to resolve in such a way that the risk does not escalate. Some personal characteristics are integrity, because they'll be handling a lot of confidential data, and they need to be no they need to have integrity, so that there is again no scope for bias. Adherence to compliance, they have to adhere to whatever policies and laws are there. They need to be empathetic, because they'll be a part of conflict resolution. They need to be patient, since they'll have to work with multiple people and gather and listen to a lot of concerns. They have to be resilient, and they also have to be reliable, and they have to be a team player, since they'll have to do a lot of collaboration. So at the end, we have come up with two competency labels. One is communication excellence and analytical ability. We've listed out the respective behavioral indicators. We have picked the tasks from what we worked above. So communication excellence is no conducting meetings to gather information and also providing resolutions. So those are the major tasks when it comes to communication. So the related KSAPs are ability to communicate effectively, which is the communication skill, the collaboration skill, and also they need to have knowledge of policies and understanding in order to communicate effectively, so that becomes a related KSAP. And also personal characteristics, we've picked empathy and patience, since they'll have to have a lot of that when they're communicating, so that no, all the parties involved are are happy with the happy, they have no a good experience during the entire process. And next label is the analytical ability, where they'll have to do a lot of data analysis, go through a lot of data, and they have to be able to understand what the data presents. So the group of related KSAPs to this are, they should be good at analyzing data. They should have the ability to look at the big picture. They should have the knowledge of organization's objectives, so that they can know provide resolutions in line with the objectives. And they also need to be they also need to be looking no good at problem solving, so that they can arrive at the right resolution. I think this is no what we have worked on. Yes.
Okay. So I think your first attempt is fairly good. So now, if you actually look at the behavioral indicators, both at a major task level and descriptions, you need to look at whether they are observable or measurable. So it needs more detailing in terms of can I, like, say, for example, description, problem solving and analytical skills, aligning with big picture. So what does one do to do these things? Okay. So that is what we will actually learn tomorrow when we are able to write, when we are mapping competencies for a particular role. How do we map functional competencies? How do we map behavioral competencies? Okay. Can I have the other, the group two's presentation also, please?
Yeah, sure. Paul, would you like to present?
Differences that we have. So we also did the role of HRBP, and at our level, we expected the person to be an expert. So when we went down to the tasks, right? So we just had 4, right? Which was we felt that
Okay.
at the expert level, they will need to have guidance, coaching, mentoring, and designing initiatives and analyzing for
Okay.
workforce data and trends.
Yeah,
Right.
you can just present till this analyze. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So basically, what we did was when we talked about the HR guidance, we talked about who would they be working with? Obviously, leaders and vertical heads, because at the expert level, and then why the work is done. Of course, number one issue is always legal and compliance to ensure that that happens, and of course to when also to enhance companies' performance. And how the work is done is through surveys, dashboards, frameworks, HR planning, business reviews, manuals, grievance handlings, and procedures, and HR MIS tools, right?
Okay.
And of course, under coaching and mentoring, we put it throughout the entire scope, which would be senior leadership team right up to mid-level managers. So one would be to develop individuals, enhance performance, and foster professional and personal growth. And of course, another idea that came up, thank you very much, was to enhance strategic decision-making skills, which would be end result of coaching and mentoring. And of course, one-on-one session, smart goal settings, feedback tools, action plans, following up for accountability, and of course, utilizing or driving a coaching model through the organization. And designing would be under designing initiatives. So we just took one, which would be talent development initiatives, and that would be to ensure leadership pipeline, future ready workforce. Of course, then we talk about interventions, organizational development interventions, succession planning, critical role identification, and high potential development. And last one would be analyze the workforce data and trends to enable data-driven decision makings, which should make it a lot more valuable to the organization when there's data mapped to actually any decision making. And of course, then we talked about HR analytics, platforms, utilizing platforms, dashboards, Power BI, Excel, and KPI creation and driving.
In terms of knowledge, skill, and ability, yeah. So don't have to go down to behavioral indicators. You can just talk about the knowledge, skill, and abilities part. Okay.
Okay. So the knowledge, skill, and ability would be labor laws for one, compliances, understanding policies of the wherever we're at, and then proficient with Microsoft Office Suite and any related software within the organization. That would be the knowledge part. The skill part would be communication skills, interpersonal skills, customer service skills, and organizational skills, and of course, attention to details. Abilities would be ability to comprehend, interpret, and apply appropriate sections of applicable laws and guidelines, regulations, ordinances, and policies. And personal characteristics would be definitely time management and proven ability to meet deadlines, strong analytical and problem-solving skills. That's where we were.
I think excellent. Both the groups have really done a good job in at least the first part, that is identifying knowledge, skills, abilities, characteristics. I think that's been very well done, except for the behavioral indicators part. So in the next session, what we are going to do, competency mapping, probably that's going to help you a lot in detail as to how do you really write those behavioral indicators for all this. Okay.